Y'all know what the vibes is. Yeah. Y'all haven't heard the hype vibes in a minute. Welcome back to another Purpose Served podcast episode. I'm your legendary host, Darryl Wingfield. I miss y'all. You know what I'm saying? Thank y'all for continuously tuning in. Even amongst my hiatuses, you never know when I'm going to pop up nowadays. Even though I'd be wanting to do these more frequently. But I don't know if I discussed it on the previous podcast, but I'm starting to be very, very critical and mindful, I guess, about these. And use my words wisely. As wisely as I can, straight up. We came a long, long way from little old Darryl thinking that he was talking to himself. And if it wasn't for you guys, man, I wouldn't have been at this point. And I wanted to talk to you guys about something deep, which that's always the case. And that's why I appreciate talking to y'all, man. A lot of these things that I get out on these podcasts, people turn a blind eye to it, serving their purpose, which is what this podcast is about. Taking action towards your dreams and aspirations for anybody that's new to listening to this or watching this. But definitely for you guys that's been listening. In today's podcast episode, I want to talk to you guys about what's been on my mind as of late. And this, of course, has to do with, everything I've been doing along the lines of Purpose Served and the brand. And this also bringing the best out of me. This is turning into God honest truth, the lifestyle. And I'm starting to realize that the words that I'm speaking, I'm living them. And not only that, the words that people speak themselves, they're living them. And how powerful words are. But through me building this World of Purpose project, I chose 10 individuals. And these 10 individuals are Albert Einstein, Carl Jung, Joseph Campbell, George Lucas, Stanley, Abraham, Isaac Newton, Malcolm X. Who's one of the last ones? Miyashi Mishimoto, and Moses. Those are the 10 individuals that I started off with this World of Purpose project. And pretty much these 10 individuals, excluding, I believe, Albert Einstein, I did lectures on them. Thanks to the help of Johnny using his barbershop as a place to host my lectures. But through last year doing these lectures over the summer and the spring, I learned a lot from studying these 9 individuals and eventually the 10th one. And ultimately, I started recognizing once I came across Albert Einstein, if I haven't talked about it already, I tend to talk about the same things all over and over again, but the fascination with light, man. And that's going to be the first chapter to the World of Purpose series. And the fact that at the age of 16, that this dude was thinking about what it would be like to chase after a light beam through the vacuum of space and pondering that for pretty much his whole life. That is insane. And not only that, using his intuitive faculties to understand the fundamental building blocks of the universe. Now, this is coming from a jarhead basketball player trying to understand physics and the special theory of relativity. This is coming from somebody that once dropped out of college with no aim or purpose into doing that. But due to the fact that I thought it was meaningless, I left. Everything happens for a reason, people. And through these last 2 weeks, especially looking at the work of Albert Einstein and following that light, you start to realize that everything makes sense, even when you think it didn't make sense. And this is something that I've been, I guess, pondering for a long time. And why do it seem like we all instinctively know the answers to the problems of life, but we don't listen to it, including myself? I'm no different from y'all. I tell you that all the time, straight up. I oftentimes have a problem with getting in my own way. And from a deeper sense, myself told me that. My higher self, my greater personality, something that we've been talking about a little bit on this podcast. But we all got that greater personality that seems like they've been there before. And they also can go back to what you've been through and present you the information in this present moment to know what to do. And this sometimes make me think, when I get them gut feelings that used to tell me, don't do this. This is a bad idea, Daryl. Was that him? And no moments when I'm in a championship game and something in me instinctually just know what to do at the right time to secure the win. I believe in those moments that was my greater personality. When I was first in Spain with no sense of direction, but listening to my gut. Something that was mentioned here previously on this podcast a while ago from one of the dudes that I mentioned, one of the 10, Carl Jung. The 4 faculties which we can put one under rational, 2 under rational and the other 2 under irrational, right? We got thinking, feeling, intuition, and sensation. And I would say I'm an intuitive type. A lot of my decisions come from a gut feeling hit me in a moment where it seemed like I know what to do, but I really don't know what to do. And if it wasn't for me listening to that, we wouldn't have the Purpose Served podcast episode. And for other people, if it wasn't for them looking for that or listening to that, in the case of Albert Einstein as an example, we wouldn't have E equals MC squared, which is the world most famous equation. And this is somebody that went through hella crucibles in order for him to be recognized, in order for him to get a Nobel Peace Prize. And going against the works of somebody like Isaac Newton, who also was included, who's going to be included in one of the 10 brilliant people. But at the same time, all of these people had blind spots, including myself. But at the end of the day, as this earth rotates and as this universe goes through the light path that's already been beamed out, we already following a path that's already laid out. Isn't that interesting? We're playing catch up. So even if you're laying down in bed, driving, for example, driving in a car, that's a great example of what we live in and what's going on right now. You're going 70 miles per hour, but in the space of the car, you are not moving. In the car, you're at rest. And pretty much every single thing around you that is happening. Isn't that interesting? And going back to light, and even the light that hit our eyes, light pretty much gives us information about the natural world. Got some coded information in there, and if you look closely enough, you can see what the light is trying to tell you. That's crazy to me. And I find it even more fascinating and disturbing that instead of that natural light, we focus on the one that's real dim. Not as intense as that natural light with that encoded information. We look at the other one with encoded information. We can say our smartphones, right? But I tell you the one thing about natural creation. You can't replicate the original thing no matter how hard you try. And it seemed like we're trying to do that. And by following the drip and looking at this trail between these 10 individuals that's highly different from each other, very, very dynamic from each other, this brought me to different locations on this planet. This brought me into different time periods from a human perspective, because as of late, and I want to say in the last 2 years, I had to really take a bird's eye view on life to really understand who I am, how did I get here, and what is it I'm supposed to do here until I check out. In the last 2 years, I've begun to take that very, very, very seriously. And I'm noticing that I've begun to take that more serious than anybody around me. And that's a heavy burden to carry. And to be quite honest with y'all, and super transparent, super transparent, since it feels like I've been blessed to have this experience, I gotta reflect this blessing onto every single thing that I come across and make way for something. And I'm still trying to figure out what that something is. But I know it's bigger than myself. And I also know that this way that I'm preparing is not necessarily for me, but it's for the next generation and possibly to preserve life and how precious it actually is. Through me walking in nature a lot, I've come to realize a lot. And if you think about us in the context of a tree, and tree representing planet Earth, we are in one of those cycles right now as we speak, that we witness in 1 year, 4 seasons. us springing out, us living our prime in the youth of summer, and then us preparing for the eventual fall that's going to come in the winter when the sun is at its lowest. That, when you really, really look at a tree, is telling you that over and over again. And we are those leaves that's hanging like by a thread. And for some of us, the wind could take us. And that's a quick descent down to the ground. But for those that's listening, this world that we live in, this universe that we live in, is so unmistakably perfect that nothing goes to waste. Nothing goes to waste. It's going to get put to good use. Everything gets put to work for the greater good. Now, you got to ask yourself, do you want that forced upon you, or do you want to do that willingly? A lot of people is forced. It's forced. And just like those leaves, we don't have the same lifespan as that tree. That sustains more life than the leaves itself. That's the home of squirrels, bugs, ants, birds, all different types of things. Way more responsibility than that little leaf that's hanging on by a thread. But I tell you guys what, those 10 people that I named, and many, many others on a major scale to the smallest scale, they became a tree. They planted a tree. And they left a legacy in order to sustain life through the 4 seasons of the sun at its peak and the sun at its lowest. This is something that I've come to start realizing, that this is of a grand design. And I've begun to develop a mindset that I'm blessed to get this experience. And what way to pay it back than by reflecting that, like I said, on all living things. It's insane. The pattern of life. And through starting off with Albert Einstein, I started from a point of science and I ended on a point of religion. And the middle point of this first volume of World to Purpose, the middle line that I used is myth, stories. And in a sense, that is that thread that holds religion and science together. And in another context, another thing that I started realizing is just that this is a conversation that I just had a couple of days ago with one of my friends, and I realized that both of those are very, very important to our culture and society, but they both have their barriers. And religion aims at morality, righteousness. The 2 greatest commandments, which is associated with loving the Lord your God with all your love, with all your heart, your mind, and all your soul, and treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself. And in a sense, that's the golden rule. But then again, it don't That's outside the context of learning mathematics. Um, that's outside the context of, in a sense, practical things. It is some practical things in there, but like I said, it's more so on a scale of morality, and science is a framework of studying the natural world. And the other one is more so the upkeep of your personal world. And you need both. You absolutely need both. And through stories that has been passed down throughout our history, we are able to come to this point. But don't forget, anybody that's listening, that you are also living out that story that one day possibly will be getting told. And what story are you living out? And for me and my upbringing, coming from North New Jersey, sleeping on couches, nowhere to stay, and it's kind of crazy. Fast forward, 15, 20 years later, my mom, congratulations to her. She's now chief of police in Massachusetts. And her story didn't have that written at first. It didn't. But we all got choices. And we all have the ability to maximize our potential. And now more than ever, it's like mad critical that we do that. Like, seriously. Because going back to following the drip, on the other side of things, this is something that I constantly talk about on here, is there is an epidemic of the blind leading the blind. That's always been a problem throughout, history. But people are sacrificing themselves for things and causes that they don't even know why they're pulled to it. Because they don't even know themselves. And I really, truly, deep down believe that once you're really, really honest with yourself, then you start to see the truth of the world around you. But if you constantly lying to yourself, you're going to constantly find yourself deceived. And it took me a while to learn that lesson. When I was deceiving myself, telling myself that I was going to be a failure eventually. But there was another part of me that deep down told myself I was going to literally die trying. And I was going to die trying, getting over that feeling. And I a lot of times I had to psych myself up and put myself in situations where it was going to force me to grow. And shout out to Joseph Campbell, one of the 10 on there, back in 2022. I read a book by him that changed my outlook on life. And that was The Hero with 1,000 Faces. And I did a lecture on that and last year, and accepting that call to adventure, which a lot of us are shying away from. And we are staying comfortable. And there's a lot of problems out there that need to be solved. And we can't have them keep piling up the way that they are, because it's spelling doom. And it's still preventable. But a lot of times people wait till the shit pile up at their doorstep in order for them to do something about it. But oftentimes it's too late. So For those of y'all that have a gift that's deep down inside y'all that y'all trying to bring out, but a part of y'all is scared. Y'all are scared of criticism. Y'all are scared that y'all are going to fail. Y'all lose focus real easily. You kind of distract yourself from that main mission at hand. You gotta ignore that. Be mindful about your environment. If that light is calling you and pulling you towards or away from your friends, away from your family, then follow it. A lot of these people had to leave their place of comfort in order for them to leave that legacy and plant that tree. One of the individuals that I named Abraham. I mentioned them a couple times on these previous podcasts, but him and his father from Babylon, and at 75 years old, Abraham got that call to adventure, to leave and go to a place he never been before. And it wasn't easy. Things take a long time to build, but it's very, very quick to destroy something. And that's why we have to work and strive to preserve and maintain life. Why let it all go to waste when there's so much out there to discover, when there's so much out there that we don't know, when there's so much life out there to live that we haven't lived yet? We shy away from it. I think that's the worst thing to do. And the more you keep breaking the barriers, other people, they see that things are possible. The light get bigger, it shine brighter. More people able to recognize that. And if they recognize that light, that means that something in them got that light too. Real talk, real talk. And dreams and aspirations, something that I've been pretty much spewing out for the last 4 years. Carl Jung, yet again, mentioning him and the importance of following your dreams. And your dreams, from a deep sense, are putting together a world from your psyche, your soul, your spiritual essence of what's to come. Whether it's dangerous or a reward, we ignore those signs. And they're powerful, they're moving, once we know what those symbols mean. And I started listening to that. And they're instinctive. A lot of things we can't plan out, no matter how hard we try. But the best thing that we can do is be. Not a lot of people mastered being a human. What does it mean to be a human being? I guess we all got to maximize our potential in order to figure that out. That's why I care about this stuff so much. I don't want the next generation to get hindered by the mistakes that we are making in the previous generation and what they did to us to put us in these predicaments. And we tend to have this thing when we have kids, we pass on the problems that was given to us by our parents. I try to make our kids figure it out. That ain't it. That is not it. And if you think about it, us zooming through the vacuum of space, expanding at a rapid rate, getting far from each other, but at the same time getting closer. The contradictions in that. But there's a middle way. And we got to follow that middle way. And if you listen to your heart, if you listen to your soul, if you listen to your mind, if you listen to your spirit, it'll tell you where to go and how to get there and what to do. Even when you don't know, there's mistakes that has to get made. That means that there's a lesson that has to be learned. And when there's a lesson that has to be learned, that means that you can teach that lesson to somebody that's looking to learn it. But that's the problem with a lot of us. We skip that stage of being a student and just want to be a teacher. When training is vital, that creates that discipline. That creates that focus. And me spending countless hours on the court, in real life taught me that. And going into a different space while training, where the only thing that mattered in the context of me and training when I was locked in like that was making them 10 shots in that specific spot, doing that specific moves in a row. So if I got the 7 and I missed on the 8th shot, we're going back to 0 and I'm locked in every single repetition. Same thing over and over and over again until I get to 10. Up, got the 6. We got to start from scratch. 8. Miss on the 9th one. Start from 0. But guess what that was doing in the long run? I was putting up more meat shots than I was expecting. So if the goal was to make 300 meat shots in a type of way I was doing it, I was going to be making 300 more meat shots because of me not practicing perfect. If I practice perfect and not miss not one shot, that's me making that 300. But just like I said, if I get the 7 or 8 and I miss again and I got to get the 10, me messing up made me put in more work. And I started recognizing, like I said, that the world was bigger than the sport of basketball. Life was bigger than that. And that caused a lot of disillusion for myself. But at the same time, I started realizing that I play a part to a whole. And I had to fit in to this part. And I had to know the whole of me in order for my part to fit into the whole of everything. And we all tapped into the same thing. This is why we need each other. This is why a lot of things can't be done alone. Community is important. Culture is important. Society is important. But recognize and look at the signs of where society is sending us, the messages in the culture, the messages in the art, the messages in the music. And that's going to tell you what the collective is thinking and feeling right now. And that sort of expression. And to put this into context, is it expressing a peaceful vibe? Or is it expressing a destructive, violent vibe? A sexual vibe, a seducing vibe, a lustful vibe. And that's going to tell you what that culture is speaking on and what that culture is feeling collectively. And this is something that I've been saying as of late. But if you're not individually willing to make that sacrifice for yourself, you will get sacrificed with the collective. And not knowing any better is starting to not be an excuse. You heard it here first if you haven't heard it here before. But the fact that y'all, I guess for those that's tapped in, that's been tapped in this long, you know a little something. You're not as tapped out as majority of people are. And in order to be tapped in as much as I've been talking about these last 35 plus minutes, you have to be present in the moment. That's the hardest thing to do. Dwelling on the past all day, anxious about the future all day, it make you forget about that natural light that I was just talking about, that Albert Einstein was obsessed with. We more so looking at other people dim lights on social media that's presenting a false light themselves. You present that true authentic light, you know how magnetic that is? People are going to naturally draw to you. People are going to be naturally interested in you. Going to have an allure. People are going to know without knowing that this person has something to offer. That's what focus and discipline create. That's what learning about yourself create. That's what being truthful about yourself create. That way you don't gotta live a lie. So many people are living a life of a lie right now. It ain't worth it, people. Think about that leaf falling down on the ground. That's how quickly this go. So you don't want to play around with this shit for real. As difficult as it sounds, it's possible to be in the present moment. And the true challenge is, how often can you be in the present moment? How often? And if you develop a true mastery of that, you got a true mastery of yourself. And then you're going to realize that this whole experience was given to you. You didn't create it. It was created for you. You were put in it. You weren't put outside of it. Everything that came before this point literally was created to help us experience life. If it wasn't for the air that we're breathing, we can't exist. So if the trees weren't here, we can't exist. If it wasn't for the water on this planet, we can't exist. We can't exist. Did that come before us? Yes. Did the trees come before us? Yes. Preordained. Grand design. There was a time into this. More people think that this is by random ass chance. But the fact that mathematicians out there and people that I mentioned like Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein studied these things closely and realized that there's a precise order to these things where you can literally keep replicating it in a sense where you plug these numbers in, you're going to keep getting the same thing over and over and over again. That's interesting to me. And this is, like I said, coming from a person that, I'm a lame tart at, something like physics. I am not the guy to talk about physics. So you just heard a lame tart version of talking about physics. But through these people in their mind's eye and how they look at the world, they created like a sharper definition for me through the meaning that they held in their lives and lived out. And we all guiding each other in that sense, and that's something that I talk about, and I feel as though that's deeply important for everybody to understand, that they hold the beacon of light within them, and it's important to cast it out in the darkness, because there's a lot of darkness out there. And through your discoveries in your lifetime, you can change the world, and you can add light to this darkness. So yeah, by doing that, you serving your purpose. Thank y'all for tuning in yet again to another one of those. Yeah. But yeah, this world of purpose. Here I go with the announcements. I know some of y'all like, oh, here you go. Yeah, when you gonna drop? When you gonna drop? But World of Purpose 10-part chapter series. I want to have manuscripts with these videos for this project for these 10 individuals, and the first one is going to be Albert Einstein, and the chapter is going to be called Darkness, and the things that he discovered and the conflicts that he was also dealing with in his personal life, with the world war that the world was dealing with at the time, and how closely he was intertwined with that, with his Jewish heritage, amongst the discovery of E equals MC squared. And the next one is going to be on Carl Jung. But I plan on dropping these out weekly. And hopefully tomorrow I can have this drop. I love y'all. Of course, serve y'all purpose, man. Do your thing out there in the world. Don't shy away from living your truth. Don't shy away from maximizing your potential. And if anybody try to dim your light, tell them to kiss ass. Say nah, I'm playing. Serve your purpose.